Hi,
There we go.
everybody. Very late start, but we're going now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women in Porn, a discriminating audience. This event is brought to you by shush.com, the web's premier porn site for women and couples. I'm Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals, and we are here live on Mindbrowse.com. I know that you guys have been listening to us for a while now, and we didn't know that you could hear us, so maybe you learned some secrets. I have no idea. But let's get started. Despite porn's global popularity, social acceptance remains very difficult to come by for current and former performers, producers, and others who work in the industry. Today, we're going to talk about discrimination, where it comes from, and possible solutions. How might women working in the industry navigate a social landscape populated by folks who are jerking off with one hand and pointing fingers with the other? Throughout this event, if you have any questions or would like to comment, you can tweet at Sex Talk Tuesday, at Shush for Women, or directly to me at Dr. Chauntelle. Just make sure to use the hashtag Sex Talk Tuesday so I can follow your comments and raise them during our conversation. So, without further ado, let's get to some introductions. Why don't we start with you, Vicky?
Hi, I'm Vicky Vette, also known as Vicky. Been in the industry since 2003. From 2003 to 2006, I made about 125 movies. And then after that, I went internet only, and I only shot for my own website since then.
Awesome. And who's that with you there, sharing the window?
I'm Julia Ann. I've been in the industry. I started doing movies in about 92, and still doing them today. And actually, my website is one of the very many websites hosted and run by Vicky Vette and her network, the DNA.
Oh, fantastic. Sherry?
Hi, I'm Shelli Shaulis. I'm the senior editor of Pleasure Products at AVN, which is a trade magazine that covers the adult entertainment industry. I've been with the magazine since 2007, and I've been covering the novelty segment since 2009. So, long time.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And last but not least, our wonderful, constant Women in Porn contributor, Kelly Holland.
Hi, I'm Kelly Holland. I'm managing director of Penthouse. I've been in the business for more years than I would care to mention, but I will tell you that the first movie I ever directed in the business had Julia Ann in it. It's a great movie called Blondage. So we've kind of been in it together this whole time.
Wow.
And so now at least they have an idea of how long you've been in it. I said 92. My first movie was
Well, yeah, but they have to go look it up, and they have to go wiki you, so it's all right.
Okay.
This is a full circle event here. Okay, but we could talk about blondage, but let's talk about something less fun. So to get us started, I'd actually like to thank Vicky for proposing today's topic and discussion. I also want to point out that as we go through here, this conversation is just the beginning. There's no way we can get at every issue in 60 minutes. And I invite all the viewers and listeners out there to think about the way these issues operate in the context of their own experiences, both in the industry and as workers. So, let's just jump right in and start with you, Vicky. What is discrimination in your view, and how have you experienced it in the civilian world, so outside of the adult industry?
Well, for starters, let me talk about my family. My brother hasn't spoken to me since 2004. He went to the store and rented a video, got his girlfriend over, dimmed the lights, got all sexed up, ready to watch this movie, and bam, it's his sister. So the next day he came to see me and he said, "Sis, I felt like somebody punched me in the stomach and I couldn't breathe." And we had a pretty big argument about it. And he said, you were a successful business person. You were running a company. You were making good money. Why would you want to lower yourself to be nothing but a dumb whore? And that was back in 2004. When I got married in 2007, my husband tried to convince him to come to our wedding and tried to kind of smooth things over. And it's still, so I haven't spoken to him yet still. So that's just for starters.
So it's interesting to me to think about how, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass here, but VNA is a pretty successful business entity. And it is interesting to think about how your business success in one industry is okay, and your business success in another is reacted to in a negative way. Is there any other examples like out in the public world? That's a pretty intense one.
Well, for example, I belong to a lot of community clubs, and I have to be extremely careful, almost paranoid, because I don't want to be kicked out. For example, I was volunteering at a dog shelter 2 days a week, and it was a government place, animal control. And if they ever knew what I did, I would not be allowed to go there to help. And all I'm doing is picking up dog poop and taking dogs for walks. And yet they have convicts, they have all these kind of rehab programs, they have people from the drunk tank, et cetera, that they put into these programs to go work there, and that's okay. But me, because I've made some porn movies, they wouldn't want me working there. I mean, is that not ridiculous? And it's for free. I'm volunteering my time, free.
Oh.
And I passed all the background checks and everything, et cetera. But there's just all sorts of things like that. For example, being able to lease a really nice house in a nice neighborhood. If they knew what I do for a living, they would not rent me this house, even though I have perfect credit, et cetera.
Right.
To me, it's just everywhere you look, everywhere you turn. And I have friends, people who actually call themselves my friends, and they really think that they know me. And I go out for dinner with them every single Thursday night. We go out and eat and hang out. And these people think they're my friends. They don't even know what I do. I mean, if you don't know what I do for a living, how could you really be my friend?
So what it sounds like to me is that we're talking about family, obviously, how you can volunteer your time, where you can live, so rental and like real estate discrimination, things like that. And also just in terms of like self-actualization and editing your life, you kind of have to limit what you can speak about when you interact with others. Julianne, any of your experience? I know you do a lot of volunteer work and a lot of advocacy with animals. What kinds of experiences have you had in this respect?
I edit nothing. That's just me. I mean, I take it or leave it. And if you have an attitude, you can be gone, because it's up to the other people that are willing to take the place as my friend. Like, I really couldn't give two shits about it. But, the things that I've run into was I was dating a cop, actually, in California. And we ended up splitting up because he was threatened to possibly have it used against him, conduct of becoming an officer for dating someone of my kind.
Wow.
So,
My kind.
Yeah.
Of the horror kind, yeah. Because apparently there's just an incredible amount of druggies and the Russian mob and all kinds of other stuff that was thrown into the mix. And I was like, we got one Russian. I just let you know, like, I don't know what to say. I mean, but for all organizations to like be pointing fingers at people who like I pay to keep me from getting killed or telling me that I'm not worthy of dating somebody was really a big slap.
Can I tell you how shocked I am by this? I said to Chauntelle when the question got circulated, I said, I don't really know what I have to say about this because I don't sense discrimination, but I'm a business person. I'm not a performer. I don't get the same full brunt that you guys do. But I will tell you, as you were talking, Vicky, about the shelter, I remember, and maybe I said something about this on the show earlier in another show, prior show, that I volunteered to do videos for community access television, and I did it in conjunction with someone that was working in the mayor's office. And they were so excited about it. And we were going to, profile a different pet every day that was up for adoption at one of the shelters. And someone on their team was married to someone who was one of the producers or executive producers at CSI. Special Victims Unit, particularly. I remember this. And they came back the next day very nervous and, we don't think this would be a good idea. And as I talked to Villaraigosa's aide, he was the mayor at the time, and it was his aide that had brought this proposition to me. He said, well, they found out what you do, and they have an issue with it. And I went, hold on a minute. And he said, it's someone who went to IMDb and found your whole history. I said, because they work for CSI Special Victims Unit. I said, hold on a minute. This is a producer for CSI Special Victims Unit, which I find to be incredibly pornographic, and it's in prime time when kids can watch it, and they're judging me. So I wrote this scathing letter, and I sent it out to about 30 people who had been CC'd in the initial email saying Kelly Holland is coming on board to do this. And I said, the hypocrisy is astonishing. And I went into my whole diatribe on it. And I will say that it turned, because the next day, Via Ragosa floated a message back and said, well, I'm sorry, perhaps we jumped to a conclusion. And if you'd still like to do this. And my response was, expletives deleted. But my response was, frickin' no, thank you. But I would point out one more weird side note. Vicky volunteers at an animal shelter. Julia Ann is in rescue, and I have a rescue called the Animal Rescue Alliance. And there's a lot of other performers that deal with animal rights issues. I don't know what that says, except that maybe it's really sad what Vicky experienced, because maybe we feel subconsciously that is the one place that we should not be judged, because the animals don't judge us, so the people dealing with the animals don't judge us. I just think there's a high ratio of people in the adult industry that share a couple of commonalities. They either come from fundamentalist religious backgrounds or Catholic school, which is kind of the same thing. And they have this big affinity for animal rescue. And so there's some common denominator that's probably worth looking at in all of that. But I think that that's such a tragedy that, that those decisions are made. So sorry about that, Vicky. That's a drag.
Yeah, even the rescue, as you know, like rescue in itself, there's a lot of drama within the ladies in animal rescue. And that's another place where I've been hit, because when if they don't like something I'm saying or something I've done as a rescuer, instead of dealing with me as a rescuer, they go into, oh, well, didn't you know she had her body parts molded in order to have guys have sex with her? Oh, a porn star rescuer, what a joke. That's where they go. Which, I'm that person that just says, as soon as my mold is released, I'm going to make sure and pack it to each and every one of you. So the next time you want to be up my twat, you can do it anytime you like. Because I'm just not playing that game. Like, there's 50 other rescuers that would gladly take my help.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about how, like, one's volunteer work is considered somehow less than or inappropriate or something.
Oh, yeah, totally. God forbid I want to do Big Sister.
Oh. No. No, I wanted to volunteer in a hospital one time, too, and I couldn't do that. But another time, I tried to raise money for a shelter who had these kennels that were just falling apart, and the dogs were getting loose because they were so old and dilapidated. So I started a GoFundMe account, and I did not use my porn name. I used no porn references, and which is bad, because if I could use my porn name, I could reach a lot more people. I mean, I could tweet to 600 or 700,000 people, right? But I didn't. I used my own name, and I was up to about almost $5,000. And someone found out who I was, and they complained to GoFundMe and to WePay, who's the one that actually does the credit card transactions. They closed my account, and to make everything even worse, they refunded all the people who had made donations of $100, $200, $250, etc. They refunded these people, and some of them were my family members, my husband's family members, and they were calling me going, why am I getting a refund? I'm like, and I couldn't explain to them what had happened. I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's some mix up. And then I had to get people to mail me money orders or mail me cash in the mail. I couldn't even have a WePay account.
I'm so shocked by that. Yeah, I'm so shocked by that. I mean, look, we know that where the Meese Commission and the government has failed to inhibit free speech and pornography, based on obviously the First Amendment, that the bureaucracy has now stepped in, right? So you see Chase Bank refusing to handle accounts. You see questions about all kinds of payment processing. Now Twitter is under fire for things that are posted on Twitter because their advertisers are pushing back.
Well, my Facebook has closed 6 times.
Yeah, so
I no longer have a Facebook.
This kind of corporate, bureaucratized approach to inhibit the business. And, I keep wanting to do an investigative story on whether that is coordinated and who is coordinating if it is. This has all come up in the last couple of years. And then you see the individual side pieces like Michael Feinstein and the whole Measure B or ballot propositions for condoms only. However, I'm so shocked by that. And I will just tell you, I do, as you know, this is a little off into the weeds and we're getting kind of, specific here, but I do a fundraiser every year and I raise about $40,000 or $50,000 for other rescues, not my own rescue. And I deal with a lot of mainstream people. And I have to say, everybody's on board. Now, the people receiving the money may be on board because they may just turn sort of a blind eye to it because the rescues are in receipt. But everybody's been great about it, including a rescue that's headed up by one of the Los Angeles sheriff. She had a bunch of sheriff's deputies at the event helping to volunteer. So I haven't really found that to be the case. But yeah, I don't dispute it. And certainly when it comes to payment processing, there's a real discrimination on anything. It doesn't have to even be connected with adult, just marginally, as you guys said.
So there's obviously a lot of tension with people who are working as performers, people who are working as producers, and sort of this, we'll take your money, but we don't want to know where it came from, or people getting outed, for example, like you're talking about, Vicky, when you're trying to do something separate from your work identity, and then all of a sudden you have friends and family being exposed to this other aspect, which is all basically a product of discrimination. I'm curious though, Sherry, what about somebody who works completely behind the scenes as a writer and with novelty like you do? How has your work impacted your life, how people interact with you, treat you?
It's funny because I started in this business and everybody, Vicky made the mention of, she didn't use her porn name. I don't have a porn name. Like, if you see my birth certificate, it's Shelli Shaulis on my birth certificate. That's who I am. Whether I was stupid or naive or, just where I was like, I don't care, I'm proud of what I do and who I am. So it's always been me. On the flip side, I had to make my friends, my family, everybody aware of what I do, where I work, what I'm doing, and things like that. I have obviously, since I don't perform in front of the camera, I don't get the same amount of discrimination and things like that. But I have had, I've lost friends because they just think that it's this immoral thing that I do. I'm like, I write stories about, rubber items. Okay. So, but, and granted it's rubber items that you might stick up your butt, but, it's no different than, like Akron Goodyear tires or something. So, it just, I think, I love that.
Got that visual?
The visual.
It's
a good visual.
Way harder to stick up your butt. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it's funny. I've run into where I've turned into everybody's favorite dirty little secret that, they want to condemn what I do and they want to condemn porn and they want to say it's this horrible industry. But yet, those are the same people that are like, well, what toys do you have? My anniversary's coming up. What videos do you have around the office? Who have you met? Who do you know? So I think it's that double-edged, where it's like they want to discriminate and go, I don't want to know you, and I think what you do is horrible, and the industry that you work in is horrible, but yet they're still fascinated by it. So...
Can I tell you, too, it's very interesting culturally because I spent time in China. Mm-hmm. And in China, as conservative as they are, and pornography is a criminal, it's a criminal issue there. You can be prosecuted quite severely. There are toy shops everywhere, mm-hmm. and it's quite out in the open. And I was there for a big trade show where I don't even think there was an age requirement for coming in because it's considered a matter of sexual health. Yeah. We actually deal with our partner in China is a big company called Lovers Health. And for them, it's such an issue of personal health that it's actually encouraged even in the conservative society that is China. So it's interesting just culturally how different groups look at this. I'm talking specifically about toys now. Yeah. And I also find it interesting to contemplate what the aftermath of things like 50 Shades of Grey are. I mean, look, we're discriminated against in many ways. You can look at a long history of discrimination, whether that's discrimination against same-sex, gay, transgender, whether that's racial discrimination, religious discrimination. Where that always starts to turn the corner is when it's your brother or sister or niece or nephew or father, and unfortunately it didn't turn the corner with you, Vicky, but it could, because you have, and we all know this as people who deal with performers, and you performers know that, it's interesting when you have performers on set and their families come to the awards, or I've had people whose mothers have come to set. So all of a sudden when you normalize the situation and people get off of their preconceptions, then life starts to change. Unfortunately, there's such a small group of actors collectively in the world that they don't have all that kind of personal impact of being able to touch people that are related to them or that they're directly in contact with. But, if you look back at the statistics, I just heard something the other day. It was reading something out of Time magazine from like 1965 where it was talking about how homosexuality was so aberrant. Yeah. And now you look, mere half century later, and you have same-sex marriage because everybody knows somebody who came out of the closet. So I think, for us, it's so important to keep messaging about who we are and what we do and what it means to society. And then you have, as much as I sort of resent 50 Shades of Grey, you have, that kind of mainstreaming. And you have, and we talk about this all the time, Chauntelle, you have the whole HBO, Showtime, Stars, Masters of Sex, Game of Thrones, Spartacus, all that stuff, which actually includes a lot of sexualized violence. You have all of that out there. And so all of that keeps pushing the population into this gray area that we sit in. So, tragic that you guys have had those experiences, but I'm just going to say times are a-changing as they do. And I don't think it will be there forever. Yes, the girl in the first row who's raising her hand.
Kelly, I understand, Sherry, because I use my real name too.
Yeah.
So Julia Ann is Julia Ann. So I'm one me, which is the one thing that actually kept Facebook from being able to shut me down, was that they're using the loophole of we have stage names.
Yeah.
So if you can't prove it's your name, they don't want an alias. So I sent them my ID, and I'm sure they very grudgingly had to put that back up.
Good for you.
This is an interesting thing that Kelly kind of raised, and I'm curious, Vicky and Julia, you guys have huge social media followings. I mean, some of the biggest in the industry. Have you guys noticed that in interacting with your fans through social media or interacting? I mean, because I'm sure for every nice thing you hear on Twitter every day, you hear 15 at least mean things or terrible things. Have you ever, or do you feel at all like you're making any kind of headway with this whole like porn stars are people too, or just in sort of combating some of the misconceptions and some of the discrimination?
Some days, the ratio is not that. There's like 20 good comments to one bad one. So. But unfortunately, we focus on the one bad one, Right. But even some of our website members get hell. One of my website members just had to close his Twitter account because his friends found out that he was interacting with all the DNA girls, and he got all kinds of trouble for that. And another website member this is how funny, what a small world it is, a website member was on cam, in our cam room, actually doing his thing, and someone else from his office where he works was also a member and got on cam, or that person did not turn on their cam, but was just watching. And for the past couple of months, he's been going through hell at work. People are making fun of him because they saw his junk on cam.
See, that is absolutely fascinating when you think about this, because it's really easy to focus on some of the terrible things that happen to performers specifically, and those are so intense. But as you start to kind of peel away layers, there's all of this proxy piece as well, like people who are supportive of the industry and fans. There's a couple of people that I know on Twitter that have a full-on alias just so they can support their favorite performer, but at the same time not be identified as a fan.
Isn't that awful that they have to do that?
That is a comment on this world that we live in. What do you
Well,
like?
I mean, look, we live in the center of a real historic cultural battle. And you see it on one side, and you see this globally with religious fundamentalism. I don't want to pick on religion, but it is at the heart of many of the evils that we suffer. So you see it in the extreme radicalism and conservatism, not just in Islam. You see it in Judaism. You see it in Christianity here. So you see it in our political system. Our political system is completely dominated by cultural issues as opposed to economic issues. Those are the dividing lines between the Dems and the Republicans. And so you see this battle being played out and people taking sides. I have my theories about why that's happening. I think the world's just moving too fast for a whole lot of people. Science is advancing too fast and people are scared and they're kind of reverting to what I call neo-medievalism in a way. But I think we're kind of collateral damage in that. But then ironically, you see popular media, who is our biggest supporter in a de facto way, promoting a much more open sexuality. And you see that with everything that's on television, even now in primetime television. And certainly that's why, not to be repetitive, I applaud things like the surprising success of 50 Shades of Grey, because it pushes that forward. And the drag is not for look, I'm sympathetic for where we are and for what performers go through and the discrimination they go through. But just think that that's a microcosm of the greater society, and think about the people who don't own their space as proudly as we do. We're combative. We're agent provocateurs. We're out there. That's why I love this business, is we're out there daring you to judge us and coming right back in your face when you do. But think about those millions and millions and millions of people, like the guy you talked about, Vicky, in the office, who want to just be okay with their sexuality, and they have to stand up to all of their friends who are judging them, and they don't have the same sort of character traits that we do. They haven't been indoctrinated or accepted into that club of renegades and rebels and agent provocateurs that we are. We're proud to say that we're outcasts, I think. I don't want to speak for y'all, but I am. And I will tell you, you'll find the language on set all the time, because all performers and crew and directors will refer to anyone that's not in the business as a civilian. Yeah. So there's us and there's them. The military uses the same language, police use the same language, and that language really dictates how we perceive our position in the world. So for us, we're this tight little clique that basically says, fuck you. If you don't like us, go to hell. But then you have those people who do depend on societal acceptance, and man, what are they going through? So I would just say that this should drive us. This should actually be the thing that gets us up in the morning, is we're fighting the battle for them. We're fighting the battle on their behalf. Look, everybody's out making a living. Some of us are knuckleheads, some of us aren't, some of us are, who we are in the business in terms of our positions here. But beneath it all, we, I believe, are warriors on a battlefront that is greater even than free speech. This is really a global cultural battle that we face, and that is to normalize and to fight for acceptance of difference and for common sexuality. I mean, people's common choices in their sexual lives. And so, Vicky, Vette, and Julia Ann, y'all be proud. You're warriors out there.
All right, Norma Ray. All right, Norma Ray.
Wow.
Sherry's just been holding her tongue, waiting.
Yeah.
Sherry, I see you over there ready to make a point. Tell us.
I was going to say, I think one of the most intriguing things I've seen lately is, and I'm sure you've all seen it, it's that meme where it's the AVN Awards from 2014, and it's got all the women in the very modest dresses. There it is. Yep. And then you look at, it was the Met event last week.
Yeah.
And you know damn well that, every red carpet awareness was like, oh, aren't you lovely? Aren't you beautiful? To all these women at the Met. But yet, had they come to our event, they would have been like, oh, well, look how trashy she looks, or anything like that. I think that discrimination double standard of even, the women in our industry who are some of the most, modest and, covered up women in public that I've ever seen. But yet, if a Jennifer Lopez or anybody else like that shows a lot of skin, it's like, oh, she's empowering. And
Yeah, Kim
it's,
Kardashian.
thank you. Yeah, Kim Kardashian, when she broke the internet, whatever, she shows her ass and it's like, oh, it's this amazing, wonderful thing. And she's a great role model. But,
I thought, okay.
But no. But I don't even, I can't even agree with that, because she took, when I watched the hits that she took, everybody's like, I don't like that slut. She's just a whore. Why didn't she, her and her Kanye? She's slaughtered. She's slaughtered on a level that I've never been slaughtered.
Wow.
And that's, again, that's just a woman living her life the way that she wants to live her life. And she's being slaughtered for it. Because if you can tear someone down, you will. And that's what I'm learning about out there, is that if there's a place to pick, people will pick that scab. And so that's, to me, she's hit. Taylor Swift is hit for being Taylor Swift. What's her name? The one that's the record. Thank you,
Miley Cyrus.
She's attacked for it. Madonna's being attacked for aging. I mean, it's like, if you can pick a scab, you will.
Well, but here's what they do, because they make us look good.
Well, I was going to say, the difference, though, with Kim Kardashian and Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift, yes, they're getting slaughtered, but nobody is saying, well, you know what, Kim Kardashian, you showed your ass on the internet or on this magazine cover, and so now we're not going to give you a modeling contract. We're not going to give you your TV show. They're still allowed to live their lives, live the way that they want, make their livelihoods the way that they want, even though they did this.
JCPenney's will still do a apparel deal with them. So
exactly
that.
True.
But
Chase is not going to close down their bank accounts.
True.
And that is a dramatic difference. As you guys are talking here, I'm sitting here thinking, maybe we shouldn't be drawing us and them between porn and mainstream. Maybe there's more commonality. Maybe Jennifer Lopez is really feeling a sexualized pressure that in the industry, you can wear a modest dress, or you can just be however you want to be and not have that level of sexualized pressure. But at the same time, too, the wider discrimination is there. And, Jennifer Lopez will continue.
Most of them made their own sex tapes, and they're still okay.
But, beneath it all is the same 4,000-year-old discrimination, which is if a woman does what she wants to do with her body, she's a slut. If she chooses not to be monogamous, to get married or be monogamous, she's a runaround slut. And I said to Chauntelle earlier, and I don't know that we even have the time to get into it because I think it deserves an entire other show, is, I want to go on a rant at some point about the concept of monogamy, which I find so destructive. Believe me, I get it. I've been there. Younger years in those relationships, it was highly important to me. Misguided, I will say, as it was highly important. But, we're sold this bill of goods from the time we're we'll pick it, 2 years old, and mommy takes us and dresses us up, takes us to Disneyland and dresses us up in a princess outfit. And we start being sold this concept of the knight on the white horse that's coming in, and it's going to be true love, and we're going to live happily ever after. Well, we all know that doesn't happen. We're not biologically wired for that. But we're set up for failure. And then when we do fail, because we lose interest, because it wears off and all of that jazz, then it's his fault for cheating, her fault for cheating, she's a slut, he's an asshole, whatever it is.
Fault for putting the narrative in front of. Just kidding.
No, well,
that's what we do say.
It's exactly. So it sets us up for failure, and it's one more aspect of that constant diatribe about what a woman should be, and the should be started millennia ago with a whole other set of issues that I won't bother to get into anthropological history on, but that is the underlying issue of this. Is she's, Jennifer Lopez, look how much skin she's showing, So I think actually strategically and politically, we should completely align and embrace with that whole position. First of all, we should be tweeting every time Jennifer Lopez or Kim Kardashian gets dissed. We should be tweeting about the fact that, you know what, girl, don't apologize for who you are. I desperately tried to get Lena Dunham to come on board with us and do a project we have in the magazine called Pop Shots, where we ask people from all kinds of disciplines, different backgrounds, to come in and shoot a layout, shoot what you think epitomizes a woman's sexuality. And it was so important to me to try to get Lena Dunham, because I thought she spoke so clearly to changing ideals about what women are and who they are and what they should embrace as their own, blah, 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 all that stuff. She wouldn't do it, unfortunately, because I just don't think, I think if I could have gotten to her and set her down, she might have. But you know, from a distance, she was like, oh, no, it's Penthouse, it's porn, it's whatever. But I think that that's that I agree with something Chauntelle said earlier, which is we should not draw the line. We should be including that entire narrative that happens with those women as part of our own narrative. And we should create a common sense of power in all of that when we speak to it.
But we don't even do that within ourselves. Yeah. And that to me is okay, let's say everybody's, like you're saying, drawing a line. And I believe that we all draw a line. So you've got the girls that are doing B-rated movies, or let's say you've got the go-go dancers, like, well, I would never do topless. That's the topless dancers that say, I would never do nude. You've got the nude dancer that says, well, I mean, I would never do bachelor parties. You've got the escort that's saying, well, I would never do porn. You've got the porn star that say, well, I would never be an escort.
I would never do anything.
I would never do. I mean, you've got everybody's drawing this line to stand where the other person's wrong. Not just saying that's not right for me, but let me tell you why you're wrong. And this is why it's such a huge deal. And with this whole testing situation and HIVs and HIV, when we have a positive, this is the thing. And here's your discrimination every single time. So why do you think that you're having so many positive HIVs now in the industry? Well, you know, the women are escorting. Has one escort female brought HIV into the business? No. Why is that the answer? Why is it every time we get this, the first thing that the women and the men, even our own talent says, well, you know, all the women are now escorting on the side. But that's not been one reason for it. So where's that discrimination? Why is it the hooker's fault?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand. Again,
it's a bumper sticker. Why is it the hooker's fault?
Why is it the hooker's fault? No, seriously. If we are going to not discriminate, and we do not want to be discriminated against, that means that we have to support the woman's right to stay in the home and watch children, and we have to support the woman's right to stand on the street corner and sell her ass.
Absolutely.
There is no
Absolutely.
You either support sex work or you don't support sex work, because that's the only way that we're going to be empowered. And I'm tired of the girls in our own industry attacking the other girls in the industry for doing what they need to do and what they're okay with it. Even if they're not okay with it, none of your business.
Look, the simple answer is you support women doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, whatever it may be. Is it monogamy? Is it celibacy? Is it being an escort? Is it being whatever? But as long as it's a woman's choice, you support that choice. And it's just that simple.
Trying to take away our sexuality in order to change other people's view is the same as stripping someone of their color to stop racism. And it's a bunch of crap.
Basically. Agreed.
Agreed. Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Bringing us back around, though, to discrimination, you were talking about monogamy. I used to go to swing clubs, and I've always been a member of a lot of different nudist resorts, and some of them are swinging nudist resorts. And being there, sometimes people would, a guy would just come up to me and just start grabbing me, just like grabbing my boobs. And I would slap him, and I'd go, what's your problem? And he'd go, well, you're in porn, aren't you?
Oh.
So, like, I face discrimination everywhere, even at a swing club, where you would think that people would be completely open-minded and see me as an equal. All of a sudden, I don't have free choice. I'm supposed to just have sex with...
But you don't have to be just a performer to be treated that way either. Like I said, I just write about the industry, and I went through a period where I was on dating websites, and it was a big struggle. Do I put on my profile where I work and what I do, or do I wait and have that conversation later? So that was a big struggle to begin with. So I was like, you know what? I'm not ashamed of it, so I'm going to put it in my profile. This is where I work. This is what I do, but it's not who I am. It doesn't define me as one type of person or another. but I still had to wade through all the guys and girls who were like, obviously thought that I was up for anything. I was a big freak in bed. I had a dungeon set up in my room. And yeah. And I probably have like...
Okay. Okay. Oh my God. Like, can I just say, I've been the managing director of Penthouse for 8 years and nobody hits on me. So what is the problem? You guys are just...
I
Damn.
think you're full of baloney, Shelli.
Oh, it's
I just
true.
want you to know that because I'd hit on you, but you're
hit on you too.
intimidating.
Yeah, you are. You're scary.
No, oh well.
And
Okay,
here's
well,
the
that's a
thing is
different story. Okay.
But I mean, I put my picture on my profile as well too. So I am not the traditional, I don't look like a porn star. I am nowhere near as beautiful as, Vicky or Julia Ann over there or anything like that. I'm beautiful in my own way, blah, 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 whatever. So, but it was this idea that, you're even tangentially associated with the sex industry, then you must be a slut and a whore and a freak and, willing to do whatever. And, that kind of discrimination. And boy, were they sorry when they found out that I wasn't like that. But, this whole idea that it's like I must be a certain type of person or, a sex fiend or something like that to even want to work in this industry. Because what other reason would I have to want to, work in the porn industry or in the sex industry or in the novelty industry? God forbid it's just because it's like, well, it's an interesting industry. And there's always something to write about.
There's always something to write about. So clearly there's a problem, right? We've established on multiple levels, multiple aspects. There is discrimination in all aspects of the industry. All women who work have a different sort of dividend or space that it operates on. People who are supporters of the industry even get shit for it. It's a really complicated issue. And then there's also the wider issue of discrimination that happens about, in between different types of sex work, and also women in different industries just getting sexualized discrimination as well. So there's a huge issue that we're talking about here. What do we do about it? How is it improving? How is it changing? What can we do? Are the wider narratives like Game of Thrones and House of Cards and 50 Shades of Grey, are those things having any impact on how we think about sex or sexuality? Is our public persona, putting ourselves out there and, using your real name like you do, Julianne, and whatever, does that do it? What can we do to combat this? Any ideas?
I think Kelly said before how it's cultural. For example, my friend Angelina Castro, who I webmaster her site, she's very big in the Latina or Latino community. She's on TV all the time, and she shoots porn. And her house is the block house for all the kids, for as long as she's had her son 16 years old. All the mothers don't mind that their kids go to her house and play. But that's in the Latino community. That would not happen in a white community. You wouldn't. Other moms would not let their kids come to my house.
Yeah, but there's also a certain amount of normalcy. Like I believe normalcy, making it normal, living your life as if it is normal, is what brings people on board. And I've said this to men I dated. I'm like, if somebody, they will try to taunt you. Your friends will try to taunt you because this is not normal to them. So they're going to come to you and they're going to be like, dude, how do you handle the fact that this chick is saying but I'm not? Like, this is the stuff that's going to happen because people are ruthless and they're bored. So if your position is you can do one of two things. You can freak out, at which point then they got you. Or you can go, I know, it's totally cool. I don't know how I'm okay with it, but I just am. I love her. And then they're like this.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have stripped the power from it. There is a certain amount of kids come in and they rip their shirt off and they're like, look, my boobs. It's their boobs. Yeah. Oh. There's a certain amount of normalcy. If you act shocked, then it ups the ante. It adds to the energy. If you turn to people without apology and go, hey, I'm a good person, that's up to you, and walk away, you leave them with it. If they want to get to know you, they do, and then they go, oh, this is normal. Like there's normalcy here.
And you know what? We are one very small piece of this puzzle. We are somewhat of a catalyst or creating a critical mass in the dialogue and the discussion. that there are cultural forces at work that are far greater than us or our industry that are moving this forward, and a lot of it has to do with women in the workplace. The fact that women now make as much money or more than their partners, which allow them to make choices about whether they want to be parents or a mother, whether they want to get married, whether they need to get married. And that has a whole ripple effect below it, because frankly, if you do not need to rely, and Chauntelle, I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you because you've heard me on this diatribe a million times, but
It's badass.
if you do not need to get married to survive, which is what we had to do 5 generations ago, right? That was the only option. You got married and you submitted to a husband because you were not in the workplace. Now, if you're in the workplace and you're making a lot of money, and you have the ability to call your own shots, you also have the ability to control your own sexuality. And who you sleep with, how often you sleep with people, whether, it's same sex, different heterosex, or whether you're sleeping with 12 different people a day or you're just monogamous. So that changes the culture at a very fundamental level. And that moves this narrative well beyond the kind of strict, you're a good girl here, which means you get married and only have one sex partner your whole life, or you're a slut there, or you're maybe something in between, which is a divorcee. I just heard a statistic. I don't know the current statistics on women under 40 that are single, but it's like passing the halfway mark at this point, I think. I could be well off on those. Maybe, Chauntelle, you know those stats. But I did hear one 2 days ago, which is now something like 45% of children that are born now in California are born out of wedlock. I even hate to say out of wedlock because it's kind of a judgmental phrase, but are born into a family unit that is not traditional and is not a married couple. And so, the change is happening at such a fundamental level and so profoundly at every point across our culture that we're just part of it. But because we're the public part of it, I think it's important that we somehow narrate it a bit and we curate it a bit and we explain it a bit. And we're not too good at doing that at the popular media level of adult, meaning, the tube site level of adult. We sort of confuse and muddy the waters at that level. But I think in this closed environment, in the educational sex tape environment, in the novelty environment that you're in, I think, and in the media environment, that's where we have to start to change that narrative. And the good thing about our business is that because everybody's fascinated with it, no matter how judgmental they are, they always want to interview you and talk to you, right? So I think it's important that everyone that gets interviewed and has the ability to grab a public forum, crafts a good message to talk about how to see the cultural changes that are happening, particularly in our sexuality and the relationships that we have with, obviously our interpersonal relationships that are driven by that sexuality.
I don't think that happens
What do you
with our
want to say
personal
about that?
website.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, honestly, I think Julia hit it on the head too, where it was just like, normalize it. Like I said, I got into this industry, and whether it was naivete or stupidity or what, I came in and they asked me, what do you want your porn name to be? And I said, well, it's my name. Anything I've ever written has to have my byline on it. So I'm using my real name. And that's how I've gotten. Like I said, I've lost friends, but it's like, well, did I really need you anyway?
Take the shock out of it.
Yeah, it's more sex toys for the rest of the world, And so
One less Christmas card to write.
But exactly. I've always been this person where everything in my life, I've run it by my mom. My mom knows what I do. She knows where I work. She's been to shows, so I'm like, that's the only person that I really care about. And, my mom grew up in a very, very small town and had one sexual partner her entire life. And then there's me doing, working in this industry. But she's gotten to the point now too, where when, she runs into the people at the grocery store and they're like, oh, where's Sherry? What's she doing? She's like, she's good. She's in California. She works in porn, like, but I think that's what we have to do is just make it very matter of fact and make it, I work in porn, and whatever your connotations of that word are, that's your connotations, not mine.
People don't know. Go ahead, Vicky, sorry.
That's easier to say than do. I mean,
It is, yeah.
when it's destroying your life, for example, when I first met my husband, he had an amazing job in England, and he proposed to me, and when his company found out who he was marrying, they did not renew his contract. And that was the only reason. Now, it didn't hurt us because luckily he's a great businessman, and, we built the DNA together after I met him. So it turned out okay, but it could have been awful. I mean, it was a very well-paying job. It was,
But it also, the universe took care of the honesty. The universe, and I do believe that. I do believe things come the way they're supposed to come. And I think that happened for a reason. I also think personal websites, like the VNA websites, and especially not necessarily every girl, but those who actually care and get involved and immersed into their members' lives, and those members become actually, and I even call them fans, because when you become a member of the site, you become the member/fan. You're not member/friend, because you actually start to teeter into the friend mode because you get to know about each other's personal lives. Yeah. So we are very much immersed now in one another. The way we speak to them, the way we educate them also goes to the future and the normality of things. And so I've got members who are from some, and I'm going to say Zany, who's out there, because I'm sure she's going to listen to this, but, she just found out, and she's from this little Bodunk town in South Carolina that's very religious, and her whole family's a certain way. God forbid they know anything about her. Her son just came out as a transgender to her. Oh, my God. So she's been running things past us. And she's been running things past the other member/friends in the VNA, and kind of get from different avenues in different parts of the country, and everybody's supportive of that, and that helps her with the normalcy of what she's going through and to fight the discrimination that she's going to have in her own family with it.
And you know what? Nobody knows what to think. I think we can kind of make that as a general statement. So you need the church to tell you what to think, or you need Fox News to tell you what to think, or whatever, because it's hard for people to try to gauge the world and decide somewhat in a vacuum what their positions are. So on the few occasions I've met people who have responded, I'm like the first to say, people say, so what do you do? And I can't wait to whip my business card out and hand it to them, because there's always that moment of, what? It's just that weird shock moment, which I love. But in the few instances, if I can think that there were any where people had negative responses, or they would say, or they would not be negative with me, but they would somehow within the conversation work in something negative about the business in general, my simple response is just to always look at them a bit aghast and go, it's 2015. Well, which is saying like, where are you living, right? Like, what kind of, lunatic are you? Are you living in the 70s? So I think it's also what we can do within our personal space, which is very limited in the grand scheme of it. But what we can do in our personal space is just to say, yes, it's the normalcy of saying, listen, it's 2015. I mean, where are you at that this is still a problem for you, given where we're at culturally? The minute you make people feel like they got left out of the group, then they're like, well, okay, yeah, I'm actually all right with it, So, we take that position as well.
There is a normality. I've had that problem with my guy's family. They're from Oklahoma, and their whole position, position was, what kind of character could a woman have to do this for a living? And the mother actually looked me in my face one time and said, I just don't understand how you two could make it, because two selfish people, how can they make it? Because that's your thought of me. I'm a selfish person because of what I do for a living. And I have no character. And I looked at her and I said, Now, and this is to me the response people have to have in these situations. You have to look at them and go, I've had a lot of things said about me before in my life. However, selfish was never one of them. And that was my answer. I've been called a lot of things. Oddly, that's not one of them, with the amount of charity and such I do. But hey, knock your socks off, run with it. It's not my position to tell her how she's supposed to think or feel. So I let her do what she's got to do. I okay then, and I move on with my day.
Before I moved,
Go ahead, Vicky. No.
Well, before I moved to Florida, I lived in a beautiful log home in the mountains in Georgia. And Dave and I landscaped it like crazy. It was so beautiful with a pond and 12-foot waterfall and everything. We got married outside in our yard. And even the deer came to watch the ceremony.
Aww.
And people used to drive by and they would stop in front of the house and just stare at the flowers and all the arrangements. And I would meet people at the mailbox and they would say, your house is so pretty. You really bring up the property values in this subdivision. And I'd say thanks. I was there for 5 years, no problem, running my website because nobody knew. The instant that someone found out, all of a sudden, some 19-year-old boy found out who I was because he saw me walking my dog. And he ran out on every single YouTube channel that he could find that mentioned Vicky Vette. He said, I know Vicky Vette. She lives on my street. I saw her walking her dog. Her address is blah, 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 on about 100 different channels. Oh. And so everyone in the neighborhood knew who I was then. I started getting hang-up phone calls. I started getting the ugliest emails. You need to move. Nobody wants to live next to a whore. You're bringing the property values down in our neighborhood. Every time I drive by your house, I want to throw up. Every time I see your car, I want to puke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was getting barraged with this hate mail. I couldn't go jogging anymore. Every time I went jogging, I'd pass people who used to wave to me and say hi. Now they were pointing and talking. Yeah. And, we eventually moved to Florida and we rent out this house now. But we can't get the stigma away from the house because even though we use an agent and we stay far, far away, someone else takes care of it, it's still known as the porn house. And if someone moves in, they might not know right away, but if they go to order a pizza, the guy at the Pizza Hut will go, oh, the porn house, as soon as he hears the address.
You're a lightning rod. Julia, have you had that much weird stuff happen to you? I mean, I get discrimination, but man.
I was born and raised in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying, we got a lot of fingers that can point in different areas. I was the minority in the school that I went to, going towards downtown LA, and I grew up in Silver Lake, which was known as Lavender Hill because it was completely gay. So I've pretty much been the minority in every group. So none of it makes, I don't know. Like, it
well,
doesn't
as we say here, between LA and New York, it's all Kansas. So I don't know what it's like to live out in the heartland, but God, I'm so sorry, Vicky. That's just like a whole litany of miserable things to happen.
Yeah, that's why I suggested this topic.
Yeah.
And
she had something to say and she didn't want to go to therapy.
Really?
I need a place to live.
Therapist is expensive.
It raises a lot of different issues because you all and we all work in different aspects that all have, a common thread. And as Julia pointed out, a lot of it is recreating or reframing normalcy and taking that power back, essentially. But as we're hearing over and over again from Vicky, that is contextual. So yeah. I think, and this is like a really, really good kind of way to sociological question, but point to end it, is that, we have to think about both normalizing and reaching out and almost being ambassadors for this year that we're living in currently and all of this different stuff. But at the same time, also remembering that there's this wider, more complicated world. And as soon as we do get out of LA and New York, we are kind of in Kansas. So there's a huge spectrum and thinking about how we as individuals and how we collectively can be confident and powerful in our choices and in what we do and own, be Sherry out there using her first name, writing about her stuff and working to kind of change things, but also always being mindful of this bigger picture that isn't necessarily where we're at and how do we work to change that? Maybe? I don't know.
I try
you set it off.
Yeah. Every time I get on a plane or I go anywhere where it's outside of my own little world, I do try to be an ambassador, and I tell everybody I'm proud to say what I do for a living because I love what I do. But when it comes to my own little neighborhood, I keep a low profile.
Yeah, but but I mean, I don't put on the thing I live here either, but because that welcomes, because it is sexuality, and sexuality welcomes a whole new level of people thinking that they know you, and then they can show up on your doorstep and be like, I love you, I acknowledge that. So, I think there's still a certain celebrity status, and so you're a little cautious with, where you live and such like that. But you don't have to. Here's the thing: nobody has to take on the world. Nobody has to take on the entire thing. Okay, so let's say I'm okay with. Yeah, this is what I do, and if you don't like it, anybody can leave the room, and anybody who stays, you're along with the ride. Okay, so that's great. That's me. She might say, well, I can't really do that in my family or my neighborhood. However, I can do it via the website and via social media, and I can do it here. So, everybody can pick a spot. Not everybody has to go to the shelter. Somebody else may want to foster in their homes that dog. Somebody else can only help finance medical care. Everybody has a place and a position where they can put in their 2 cents and make change. Nobody has to take on the world.
Exactly. And
Great
that's
point.
the thing that's really important to remember, I think, is that there's all of this is part of a wider conversation and a wider endeavor, but everybody can work towards it in this small way or a huge way, a public way or a subtle way, but we all can work towards changing it. And every little drop and every little piece is a wider contribution.
Yeah, I think people both outside the industry, but I think particularly inside the industry, I think we probably underestimate our effect and our profound effect on the world around us. So I only say that is because, look, we're seen as, oh, it's pornography. It's this fungible little, sweet that you just eat and then it's gone and it doesn't mean much. Well, no, it's actually on the surface, you could easily interpret what we do in our industry as being just this sort of light, weird, adjacent entertainment line, right? But it's not. It's really profound what we do. We hit people at a very basic level. We kind of insinuate ourselves in weird ways into their psyche, and we're really part of an important conversation that goes on globally. And so I only say it, and I don't expect everybody to, decide they're going to soapbox this one, but I do believe that every time you go on a radio show because you're dancing in Cleveland, or every time you're on Howard Stern, and the conversations, and we know how these things go, right? It's always like, for the performers, it's always like, oh, are you going to show us your boobs, right? I mean, that's all they care about. So I don't mean to say that those shows have to get into a philosophical bent about where culture stands regarding women and sexuality. But I think when we're asked, we have to be ready to step up, because I think we are spokespeople for something that's maybe a little greater than us and more important than us. And I think we just tend to underestimate the importance of ourselves at times,
Yeah.
You guys got a lot to say. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sherry, do you have any closing comments? What do you have to say?
No, I think you're right that, we just need to do what we can, whether we think it's a grand gesture or just a little thing or just anything that we can. And I honestly think that you look at how much has changed just in the short time all of us have been in the business. How much is it going to change in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Not just our business, but society and the culture as a whole. I think there's a whole generation that's going to have a lot more to say and be a lot more vocal about it.
Yeah, it's true. Times are changing. You can see it in law, you can see it in media, and you can see it in each one of you. All right, we're about out of time. I'm getting all these little bing, bing, bing messages off to the side. Vicky, Julia, Kelly, Sherry, thank you guys so much for being here. This is stimulating and wonderful as always. Viewers, listeners out there, sorry for the late start, but I can tell that it was totally worth it. So Mindbrowse shows are brought to you live streaming. They're archived free of charge, compliments of shush.com, the web's premier porn site for women and couples. You can visit Shush on Twitter at Shush for Women. And I'm Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals, and I'll see y'all next time.
See ya.